These 4 divine art treasures, each one immensely powerful, were prepared by the Moon Clan over countless millennia for the sole purpose of capturing the ancient gods alive. It is important to know that in this world, aside from the ancient gods, ancient demons, and ancient monsters, the Moon Clan is the most knowledgeable about the ancient gods. In dealing with the ancient gods, the Moon Clan has devised countless methods. Ascent's roar echoed through the moonlit world. Facing the countless lunar crescent blades approaching, he swung his arms, unleashing unimaginable shockwaves that shattered every nearby crescent blade. Then there were the blood moon wings, which swept across and were destroyed by a punch from Ascent. However, countless feathers from the Moon Clan were directly embedded into Ascent's body. More powerful still were the 9 ancient god skulls. These 9 skulls belonged to the real ancient gods who had died countless years ago. Their appearance was like 9 suns, emitting an enormous shockwave, heading straight for Ascent. Wang Lin's expression darkened as blood-red swords whistled around his body. Various divine arts flickered in his hands as he fought against the endless lunar crescent blades, especially when the blood moon wings approached, transforming into countless feathers that pierced through his body with overwhelming penetrating power. Blood sprayed everywhere, and Wang Lin found himself unable to retreat, as the moonlit threads now surrounded him. As for the ancient god skulls, they didn't target Wang Lin but instead rushed directly toward Ascent. The 9 skulls unleashed a tremendous, world-shaking screech, and at the moment they approached Ascent, they exploded with a mighty force. An indescribable shockwave reverberated in an instant. Even Ascent couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, his expression turning more ferocious. In this battle, the Moon Clan had spared no expense. They had invested the full force of their lineage, using their long, accumulated power to capture the ancient gods alive. The 9 ancient god skulls were the Moon Clan's family treasures. The destruction of any one of them was equivalent to a third-step cultivator self-destructing. Now, with all 9 shattering simultaneously, the power was boundless. But even more precious than these skulls was the final item to enter the formation, the god-breaking liquid. This liquid had been implanted into the bodies of Moon Clan members since birth. Its origins were shrouded in mystery, but even the Moon Clan only knew that during a rebellion many millennia ago, this liquid had successfully killed an ancient god. After being nurtured by the Moon Clan over countless ages, the power of this god-breaking liquid had become terrifying beyond imagination. At this moment, the liquid transformed into a blood-red sea that swept in, instantly engulfing Wang Lin and Ascent, creating a massive blood vortex. Wang Lin immediately felt the power of the ancient gods gradually melting away within the vortex, and an extremely dangerous sensation immediately flooded his mind. Ascent's expression grew even more serious. However, the Moon Clan's methods were far from over. They had prepared for countless millennia, and this was only a fraction of their full arsenal. Present the Moon Clan's treasured artifact, the Eye of the Ancient God. The Elder's eyes were fixed on the formation as he bellowed. Immediately, 2 blood-red eyeballs appeared in the starry sky. Their gaze seemed to drip with blood as they locked onto the formation, staring directly at Ascent and Wang Lin. Present the Moon Clan's treasured artifact, the giant spirit bell. A massive ancient bell suddenly appeared in the heavens and earth. It rang out loudly, sending violent waves that rippled through the formation. Present the Moon Clan's treasured artifact, the 9th spirit of world destruction. The elder formed a hand seal, releasing a deafening screech as blood poured from his 7 orifices, his white hair wriggling strangely. Before him, a cyan illusion materialized. Its form was unclear, but the cyan light surrounding it caused Ascent's pupils to contract as he stared at it in the formation. When Wang Lin saw the cyan illusion, his heart skipped a beat. He vaguely recognized that the cyan light radiating from it was identical to the aura found within the skulls of the ancient gods from the demon spirit realm. Each of these treasures was specifically designed to target the ancient gods. If these treasures were used against other third-step cultivators, they might not unleash their full power. But against the ancient gods, these treasures were sharp as blades. Ascent roared as his body suddenly swayed, releasing a powerful shockwave that scattered in all directions. As the blood sea surrounded him, he glared at Wang Lin, no longer hesitating. 6 star marks began flashing rapidly on his forehead, and in an instant, he charged directly toward Wang Lin, aiming to envelop him. I will devour you. Once I fuse with this power, I'll break this seal and let the Moon Clan's blood flow like rivers. Wang Lin, I possess the memory inheritance of 2C. If you devour me, the inheritance will merge, and 2C will awaken immediately. Do you not believe me? Try it. Wang Lin sneered, making no attempt to resist. He simply stared coldly at Tuasan as the 6 star marks approached. This statement once again hit Tuasan's weak spot. He let out a maddened roar, his eyes glowing red. You only need to consume the inheritance law to unlock the seal that prevents divine arts. It's not a matter of simple devouring. In fact, if we work together, it will definitely be a win-win situation. If you persist on your own path, even if I'm not your match, once 2C awakens, you'll undoubtedly die. Before 2C, do you think you can escape? At this moment, the sea of blood surged violently, surrounding everything. The gaze of the ancient gods I locked down fiercely, brewing an astonishing aura. The giant spirit bell roared, sending shockwaves through the air, and then came the 9th apocalypse spirit, glowing with a green light as it approached. Endless threads of moonlight filled the surroundings. We are both ancient gods. How can we allow this slave clan to insult and seal us? If you trust me, let us first annihilate the slave clan. Afterward, I will naturally give you an answer. Wang Lin didn't even glance at the approaching magical treasures. Instead, he stared at Tuasan, awaiting his response. At the moment when all the magical treasures came rushing toward him, Tuasan ultimately couldn't take the risk. He couldn't be sure whether what Wang Lin had learned from his inherited memories was true, but even if 9,999 out of 10,000 were false, and only one piece was true, it was a gamble he could not afford to lose. If he lost, 2C would be revived, and he had no confidence in facing 2C. It would be certain death. Fine. Tuasan gritted his teeth and roared. In his mind, after the slave clan was wiped out, Wang Lin would have nowhere to run. At that point, he would capture him and have all the time in the world to slowly study him. If what he says is true, I'll give up my hope of becoming a 9-star, destroy his memory inheritance, and ensure 2C can never awaken. As soon as Tuasan agreed, Wang Lin immediately formed a hand seal, and without hesitation, he waved his hand forward. Words in the ancient god's language rang out. When the heavens and earth first opened, there was an ancient clan, divided into 3 parts, with the ancient god as one. Defying the Tao, they battled against the heavens and earth, understanding the vast cosmos, destroying the heavenly Tao, and breaking the starry sky with a technique that shatters all the worlds. The 8-star ancient god technique, Void. Wang Lin's eyes emitted a strange glow, and 6 ancient god star marks on his brow spun wildly. A tremendous surge of ancient god power surged into his hands. In an instant, as the various Moon Clan techniques and magical treasures arrived, a broken symbol appeared before his hands. Though the symbol was incomplete, it emanated a world-shattering aura, destruction, the power to dismantle all divine arts and shatter the heavenly Tao. This was the Void, the ancient god void power capable of destroying heaven and earth. Tuasan, ancient god power. Wang Lin roared. Tuasan, gritting his teeth, waved his right hand, and his 6 ancient god star marks spun. A surge of ancient god power, many times more intense than Wang Lin's, poured into the incomplete symbol. In an instant, the symbol began to writhe, quickly completing itself. The completed symbol appeared in the world, its power like the ancient god's 8-star technique, a power that had not appeared since the primordial era. Outside the formation, the old man with white hair immediately changed his expression. The symbol burst forth with dazzling light, glowing with an eerie shade between black and white, a grayish hue that spread out wildly from Wang Lin and Tuasan, sweeping across the surroundings. The shattered divine blood reversed, and the ancient god's eye exploded. The shockwaves from the giant spirit bell dissipated, and even the green phantom struggled for a moment before dissipating into smoke. The threads of moonlight around them shattered with a thunderous crash. Everything retreated under this grayish light. The moonlight world formed by the sealed realm grand array cracked, shaking violently. Please, the first treasure of the Moon Clan, the ancient god remnant bone. The white-haired elder screamed with despair, and instantly, a massive rift appeared in the world. It tore open, releasing an unimaginable pressure from within. A finger, as large as half of a cultivation star, slowly extended from the rift. This finger was pure bone, no flesh. It was the bone of the middle finger. Destroy God. The white-haired elder roared, and at the same time, the 100,000 Moon Clan cultivators, along with hundreds of cultivators maintaining the array on the cultivation stars, all shouted in unison, "Destroy God! Destroy God!" As members of the Moon Clan, they had once obliterated the ancient gods countless years ago. Now, they were once again set to destroy the gods, to annihilate the beings who had once helped them for countless years. The roar of 10,000 people shook the heavens, turning into a wave of sound that raged across the starry sky. This is the finger of a 9-star ancient god. Ascent's expression changed dramatically. The moment the broken finger bone fell, the sealed realm grand array, pierced by the symbol's light, exploded. At the instant of its collapse, it collided with the finger bone. The booming sounds echoed, and Ascent spat blood. His body staggered and was thrown far away. Wang Lin's body cracked with a series of sharp sounds, his bones shattering. Blood spilled as he was thrown in all directions. The massive finger bone landed on the ground, perfectly intact. As he was thrown, Wang Lin didn't hesitate. He once again cast the devouring spirit and absorbing body technique, his body bursting with black mist. The immense force sent him rushing toward the array of cultivators. As the mist dispersed, the shrill cries of agony rang out, and he began to devour them with reckless abandon. Wherever he passed, all the Moon Clan members withered into corpses, their bodies exploding in waves. In the distance, Ascent's roar echoed as he launched a counterattack. Wang Lin howled as he devoured countless beings, his internal injuries astonishingly healing. The shattered bones in his body continuously fused together, and his wounds rapidly closed up. The entire Moon Clan star domain was thrown into chaos. The Moon Clan elders, who had been meditating on planets to maintain their formation, spurted blood the moment the formation collapsed. But in this instant, they gathered their spirits. With red eyes, some rushed toward the black mist created by Wang Lin, while others, led by the white-haired elder, charged toward Ascent. The white-haired elder growled lowly, swinging his right hand. His body suddenly expanded, the crescent moon mark on his forehead spinning. His body rapidly grew to several 100 feet tall, almost on par with the ancient gods. This was a divine art created by the Moon Clan after countless years of research, designed to allow them to become like the ancient gods themselves. By absorbing the power of the ancient gods, they could, to some extent, simulate their might. It wasn't just one, but 9 individuals who transformed into beings several 100 feet tall. Once they simulated the ancient gods, they immediately gained immense strength. With a thunderous crash, they clashed with Ascent. However, they were no match for Ascent. With a roar, they were forced back, retreating violently. The elders charging toward Wang Lin were just moments away when Wang Lin's figure blurred, instantly blending into the world, disappearing and reappearing in another direction as he devoured relentlessly. Screams filled the air, and within moments, over 30,000 lives were consumed by Wang Lin. His injuries healed over half, and before the Moon Clan elders could reach him, he leaped toward them. On Ascent's side, a low growl rang out. Shatter! With a booming sound, one of the elders who had simulated an ancient god was crushed by Ascent's punch. Before his body could even dissipate, black mist swept in, spiraling toward him. Wang Lin had been watching, and before the elder could die, Wang Lin consumed him in that very instant. The entire Moon Clan was thrown into disarray. The people scattered, retreating at top speed, faces filled with terror and shock. For many of them, this was the first time they had seen a living ancient god, let alone witness their true power. Despite it being their first time working together, Wang Lin and Ascent displayed an uncanny synergy. But that brief coordination shattered when Ascent's eyes flashed coldly. After shattering the elder, he raised his right hand, aiming straight for Wang Lin. It doesn't matter if what you say is true or not. Today, you will not escape. Wang Lin had long been prepared for this moment. As Tu Ascen's hand reached for him, Wang Lin's lips curled into a cold smile. His body rapidly retreated, his hands forming seals as blue veins bulged from his neck. With blood vessels swelling, he let out a low growl toward Tu Ascen. Ancient God Technique, Star God Vortex. As he spoke, Wang Lin's hands pointed toward his brow. With a rumble, 6 star marks spun from his forehead and shot into the air. A massive vortex formed, and the scene was eerily similar to Tu Ascen's star mark absorption technique. This ancient god divine art was something Wang Lin had never been able to perform before. Without the immense power of the ancient gods supporting him, he couldn't have achieved it. However, this was all part of his plan. Back in the ceiling formation, he had used the ancient god illusion art, which absorbed Tu Ascen's vast ancient god power. Wang Lin had secretly intercepted half of the ancient god energy contained in the runes at that moment and stored it within his body. This was his plan not only to harm Tu Ascen under the ancient god fingerbone, but also to use it now in his own ancient god divine art. At this moment, the star god vortex erupted, filled with powerful ancient god energy. Wang Lin's body and the previously intercepted energy merged into this attack. Tu Ascen's punch collided with the star god vortex, causing a tremendous explosion. Wang Lin spat blood and staggered backward. His right hand raised, and the blood sword slashed forward with ferocity. Tu Ascen wasn't unscathed either. He had been injured repeatedly and never expected Wang Lin to use an ancient god divine art. The boundless pull from the star god vortex even caused part of the ancient god power within his arm to be drawn out, turning into Wang Lin's attack, clashing with his punch. Tu Ascen's right arm went numb, and he hesitated for a split second. It was in that moment of hesitation that Wang Lin's blood sword cut down, landing a blow to his palm. With a sharp whoosh, Tu Ascen's index finger was severed. Blood spurted out. This was the most significant injury Wang Lin had inflicted on Tu Ascen so far. With a heart full of rage, Tu Ascen's eyes burned with murderous intent. In that instant, he no longer thought about devouring Wang Lin. Instead, all he wanted was to kill. To kill this fellow who was of the same clan. Just as Wang Lin and Tu Ascen were locked in their destined battle, the severely injured elders of the Moon Clan, those who had suffered under Tu Ascen's earlier assault, immediately began to retreat. Among them, the white-haired elder held the highest status. His face was twisted with pain, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth as he glared at Tu Ascen. He had clearly realized Wang Lin was no match for Tu Ascen. If the battle between these two ancient gods reached a conclusion, the Moon Clan would be utterly doomed. At that moment, he no longer hesitated to help Wang Lin. This was also the Moon Clan's last chance. Fellow clansmen, shatter your moon spirits and offer yourselves as a sacrifice for the Moon Clan. His voice was urgent. The few figures beside him wore sorrowful expressions, but not one of them hesitated. Forming seals with trembling hands, they pressed their fingers to the centers of their brows, and their bodies erupted with thunderous force. From their shattered forms, the crescent marks on their foreheads shot forth, all merging into the white-haired elder. His body immediately swelled. He pointed both hands downward with force, and with a hoarse shout, cried out, "I summon the Moon Clan treasure, ancient god remnant bone." As his voice rang out, moonlight surged violently from his body. The massive ancient god finger bone embedded deep in the earth rumbled and rose into the air in an instant, locking onto Tu Ascen and pressing down with tremendous force. The speed of this ancient god remnant bone was astonishing. It arrived in a flash. Surrounded and under siege, Tu Ascen was already overwhelmed. He had lost a finger to Wang Lin and was seething with rage. With a furious roar skyward, he swung both arms and caught the colossal ancient god finger. Veins bulged across his body as if he could barely withstand the crushing weight. His body staggered backward, trembling under the pressure. In that moment of desperation, the star mark on his forehead spun wildly, particularly the one star where he had sealed a third-step cultivator. Without hesitation, he detonated it. A thunderous burst of power surged into his entire body. His backward momentum slowed dramatically, and with another roar, the 6-star marks at his brow spun out, transforming into a massive vortex. So this isn't the finger bone of a full 9-star ancient god, it's just short of it. Swallow it. He intended to devour this near 9-star ancient god remnant bone as if it were a third-step great power, drawing it into his star marks. At that moment, aside from the third-step female cultivator of the ancient star of antiquity he had just consumed, there was no one else sealed within those stars. Even Wang Lin was deeply shaken by the sight. A chilling fear of Ascent's madness gripped him. He had seen many madmen before, but never one so utterly deranged. The aura within the ancient god fingerbone was like a blazing sun, far too overwhelming to absorb. Even another ancient god would be reduced to an ant beneath that pressure. Wang Lin's eyes flashed with a strange light. If he can absorb it, then so can I. Gritting his teeth, he refused to let this chance slip away. Especially now, while the ancient god fingerbone was being consumed by Ascent, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Decisive as ever, Wang Lin didn't hesitate. He shot forward, transforming into a streak of light and shadow, instantly arriving close. His right hand raised the blood sword and struck down hard upon the massive bone. With a deafening crash, the finger bone trembled violently. Under the blood sword's terrifying edge, cracks appeared, and then, under Ascent's frenzy, it split clean in two. The sword's sharpness was utterly terrifying. The ancient god fingerbone shattered with a thunderous blast. From the fracture, an enormous shockwave burst outward, sweeping across the surroundings. The majority of it slammed into Ascent, who let out a shriek of agony. The shockwave crashed into him, sending a mouthful of blood spraying from his lips. His body was flung backward, soaring away in an instant. Half of the broken finger bone, under the impact, was forcefully absorbed into Ascent's vortex, vanishing into one of his stars. But Ascent was grievously wounded. Blood gushed from his mouth, yet he still refused to give up the chase. Just as he tried to resist the backward momentum, the star mark on his brow that held the female cultivator from the ancient star of antiquity burst forth with a blinding light. Ascent froze, his expression twisted, and in the next instant he made a drastic choice. Abandoning Wang Lin entirely, he turned into a blood-trailing rainbow and fled with all his might. The shockwave from the shattered bones swept across the land. The white-haired elder of the Moon clan was struck head-on. Explosive cracks echoed from his body, blood spurted from his mouth, and his physical form collapsed. His weakened essence spirit fled frantically into the distance. All around, those Moon clan members who hadn't retreated far enough were mowed down like weeds. Blood burst like rain, and countless lives were lost. Wang Lin, too, coughed up blood. He had been too close to the explosion. Though most of the shockwave had hit Ascent, a portion still came for him. His body was in no shape to withstand it. But in the instant the shockwave struck, Wang Lin let out a deep growl, and from within him erupted a blazing blue flame, a bolt of primordial thunder, and the entwining forces of karma, life and death, illusion and reality. The 5 fundamental origins manifested at once, forming a vortex before him that collided head-on with the blast. At that moment, Wang Lin's eyes flared crimson. He charged into the extreme realm. The sound of heavy impacts echoed again and again as Wang Lin rapidly retreated, bearing the colossal ancient god fingerbone, nearly the size of half a cultivation star. With each step back, he merged deeper into the world around him, preparing to use the shrinking earth technique to escape. Yet in the final moment before departure, despite the bloodshot weariness in his eyes, a flash of cold light surged forth. With a thought, a whip materialized beside him. The Kunji whip. As soon as it appeared, the whip extended infinitely, lashing out with a thunderous roar. It coiled around the weakened essence spirit of the white-haired elder fleeing in the distance. With a fierce tug, Wang Lin, along with the massive fingerbone, vanished from the Moon clan's star domain. He returned fully triumphant. In the dazzling sea of stars of the ancient star of antiquity, ripples spread gently across space like the subtle waves in a lover's heart, gradually expanding into the distance. From the heart of those ripples, Wang Lin stumbled out. His face pale, he immediately lifted his right hand and grasped at the void. A storage rift appeared before him, and from it, Li Qianmei's delicate body, eyes still closed, fell softly into his embrace. Her appearance had withered further, the signs of vitality fading from her face. Back when Tua's son was hunting him down, Wang Lin had worried she might be harmed. He had separated a portion of his primordial energy to surround her, placing her into the storage rift. That energy, continuously flowing and transformed into a time art, had protected her throughout his fated battle with Tua's son. But within the rift, separated from Wang Lin's presence, even that brief battle drained much of her remaining life force. Looking at her wan, fragile face, a deep pain welled in Wang Lin's heart. Just as he once promised Li Muan, no matter if the heavens decreed her death, he would defy fate to bring her back. He had also made a vow to Li Qianmei that no matter the cost, he would not allow her to vanish from this world. It was his promise, the promise of a man. Gently holding her close, Wang Lin ignored his own injuries, continuing to circulate his primordial energy. He channeled it into the time art, letting it flow through her body, nourishing her heart and fading life essence. The starry sky was silent, no sound, no movement. At that moment, the entire world seemed to dim, leaving only the two of them flying quietly through the endless void. Wang Lin stored the massive fragment of the ancient god fingerbone in his storage space. He had no time to examine it closely. Even the white-haired elder from the Moon clan, now sealed tightly by the Kunji whip, was placed within as well. In this tranquil cosmos, Wang Lin didn't want anything to disturb him. He only wanted to accompany Li Qianmei in silence, to bring her to the Blue Dream Dao Sovereign. Or rather, to see her off, one final time. I want you to see me off, when I leave. Her voice, soft and distant, echoed from a memory 10 years past, now surrounding his ears. Today, Wang Lin was fulfilling that promise, sending Li Qianmei on her final journey. The beauty of the starry sky wasn't in the brilliance of the nebulae, nor in the occasional flash of meteorites. It was in the utter stillness, in that quiet, where one could count their loneliness and solitude, and feel the chilling sensation of being the only soul left between heaven and earth. Holding Li Qianmei in his arms, Wang Lin's eyes softened as he flew ever faster toward the Blue Silk clan, the home of the Blue Dream Dao Sovereign, etched deep in his memory. Starlight spilled across them, as if the heavens themselves were silently accompanying them on this final path. Li Qianmei's frailty worsened by the moment, and Wang Lin had to infuse more and more of the time art into her. As they pressed on, fusing with the world through the shrinking earth technique, the distance gradually shortened. The star domain of the Blue Silk clan lay far from the center, nestled deep within the boundless sea of stars. Wang Lin journeyed forward in silence. The Blue Silk clan was one of the rare few tribes within the ancient star of antiquity that did not delight in bloodshed. True to their name, every one of their members was born with blue hair. Blue, like sorrow, like melancholy, was etched deep into their souls. While they lacked natural talent in cultivation or divine arts, the Blue Silk clan had delved deeply into the auxiliary paths: music, alchemy, artifact crafting. Especially in music, they had reached near perfection. Every member of the Blue Silk clan was a master of melody. And just as notably, they were an incredibly beautiful people. Men and women alike were blessed with striking looks. But it was precisely these traits that, over countless generations, led to a tragic fate. The Blue Silk clan became the favored choice for concubines and playthings of powerful clans. To the Blue Silk clan, this was a sorrow, a wound, one that lingered, just like their azure hair. That sadness infused their hearts, never dispersing, granting the women a rare, haunting beauty, and the men, a quiet grace tinged with the same sorrow. Their music no longer carried joy, only sorrow, pouring from their hearts and echoing through the melodies, expressing their grief as they became subordinates of one of the great clans of the ancient star of antiquity. They had no freedom. Every Blue Silk clansman was taken away before reaching adulthood, their lives no longer their own. Once taken, they could never return home again. All of this changed, utterly and completely, with the rise of the Blue Dream Dao Sovereign. He was the most gifted person the Blue Silk clan had produced in countless generations. Legends about him circulated endlessly throughout the ancient Star of Antiquity. When people in the ancient Star of Antiquity mentioned the Blue Dream Dao Sovereign, their first thought wasn't his power, but his devotion, for in his life, he had loved only one woman. She was the wound in his heart, the sorrow in his soul, accompanying him through the long years. It was said that it was because of this love that he rose to such heights, becoming one of the 5 ancient sovereigns. Even the Palm Sovereign regarded him with caution. Because of him, the Blue Silk clan became one of the major powers of the ancient Star of Antiquity, claiming a vast star domain. But the clan's quiet nature remained unchanged. They continued to live peacefully within their territory. Over time, the sorrow in their music faded, replaced by joy. That joy existed under the protection of the Blue Dream Dao Sovereign. To the Blue Silk clan, he was a divine being, revered and honored. The Blue Mountain, where he resided year-round, became a sacred place to the clan. Yet despite the clan's happiness, the melodies that occasionally drifted from Blue Mountain still carried a faint, lingering sorrow, one that would never truly fade. Like the memories of the Blue Dream Dao Sovereign, that sorrow became eternal. At this moment, atop Blue Mountain, a simple wooden house swayed gently in the wind. Inside, a middle-aged man in blue robes sat before an ancient zither, gazing at it in silence. After a long while, he slowly raised his head. His appearance was enough to make all other men seem plain, and even women paled in comparison. His beauty felt almost out of place in this world. But the weariness etched on his face, and the memories reflected in his eyes, filled him with melancholy and gave him an air of aged sorrow. His blue hair shimmered faintly, though streaks of white had appeared at his temples, whispering of a life filled with unhappiness over countless years. A trace of grief flickered in his eyes as he silently lowered his head again, gently brushing his fingers over the zither. After some time, the wooden door creaked open without a sound. A graceful woman stepped inside. She wore a soft pink robe and approached quietly. "You still can't forget her, can you?" she said softly as she sat beside him. The man didn't respond, nor did he look up. He continued to caress the strings of the zither, his eyes growing ever more sorrowful. "It's been so long. She's already gone. Why do you torment yourself like this?" The woman bit her lower lip, gazing at him with conflicted eyes. "She's not dead." The man suddenly lifted his head, his gaze piercing as lightning, locking onto her. "But what difference does it make? The person she once was, she's as good as dead." The woman stared at him in anguish. The man fell silent. After a long pause, he rose to his feet and said calmly, "Your sister, she's not dead." The woman's eyes glistened with tears. With a soft sigh, the man opened the door and stepped outside. As he looked toward the distant sunset on the horizon, he took a single step forward, his entire being glowing with a gentle azure radiance, and then he vanished into the heavens. The Blue Silk clan star domain was vast. At its edge, a woman in white robes walked forward with a calm expression. She had followed Wang Lin all the way here. Just as she was about to enter the Blue Silk clan's territory, she suddenly paused, stopping in place and gazing ahead. In front of her, the starry sky flickered with a silent flash of azure light. The middle-aged man who had vanished atop Blue Mountain stepped out of that light. "Leave." His eyes were cold, and he spoke just one word. The woman in white remained silent, unfazed. "He has already been chosen. You cannot protect him." Her voice was calm after a long silence. "Leave." The man's eyes suddenly gleamed with murderous intent. Though his tone remained steady, a terrifying aura surged forth, crashing toward her. In an instant, the entire sky darkened, and a realm of absolute death spread outward. The woman's pupils contracted. She raised her right hand and slapped forward, her body drifting backward. "He will emerge eventually," she said, her voice still tranquil, retreating farther and farther until she disappeared into the stars. No one knew how long she traveled through the starry sky. That day, Wang Lin brought Li Qianmei to this beautiful land of the Blue Silk clan. He had come to the domain of the Blue Dream Dao Sovereign. He had come to Li Qianmei's home. Amidst the vast starry sky, as Wang Lin continued forward, the stars grew increasingly brilliant. The star domain of the Blue Silk clan was breathtakingly beautiful. Even the cultivation stars shimmered with a bluish hue, casting a gentle glow that stretched into the distance like starlight. Qianmei, we're here. Wang Lin lowered his head and softly spoke to Li Qianmei, who lay in his arms with eyes closed, as if in a peaceful slumber. Just then, the entire star domain of the Blue Silk clan suddenly erupted with endless azure radiance. Beneath that flood of blue light, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the heavens and earth. Give her to me. At the very instant the voice appeared, Wang Lin's heart trembled violently. He jerked his head up and saw a middle-aged man in blue robes. The moment Wang Lin laid eyes on him, a thunderous roar rang in his mind. That man's appearance was shockingly similar to Li Qianmei's. There was no doubt they were closely related by blood. Blue Dream Dao Sovereign. Wang Lin stared at the man. He instantly recognized that voice. It was the very same one that had once brought him to the brink of destruction back in the seven-colored realm. He would never forget it. Fate is often unfathomable. No one could have foreseen that the indirect clash between the two, over a decade ago in the seven-colored realm, would lead to a true meeting now, amid the ancient star of antiquity. The middle-aged man gazed at Li Qianmei, his eyes filled with sorrow. With a sweep of his sleeve, a violent storm surged forth, charging directly at Wang Lin. It arrived in an instant and exploded with a thunderous boom. A mighty force spread out, enveloping Li Qianmei in Wang Lin's arms. Gently, she floated toward the man, who caught her with both pain and affection in his gaze. Without a word, he turned around, carrying Li Qianmei away into the distance. Azure radiance gathered from all directions, enveloping his figure as he vanished into the starry sky. Not once did he look back at Wang Lin. Blasted backward several steps by the storm, Wang Lin finally came to a halt. He stared silently in the direction where the Blue Dream Dao Sovereign had disappeared, his expression complex and unreadable. He could almost be certain there was definitely a familial bond between Blue Dream Dao Sovereign and Li Qianmei. Since he had taken her away, he surely had a way to awaken her. By Wang Lin's original plan, this was the moment he should leave, depart the Blue Silk clan, exit this star domain. But after a long silence, he made no move to go. He needed to be sure that Li Qianmei would truly wake up. Quietly, Wang Lin's body flickered and transformed into a rainbow streak, shooting forward. He ventured deeper into the cultivation region of the Blue Silk clan. Without even extending his divine sense, he could clearly see a cultivation star within the endless sea of stars, radiating a blue glow that illuminated the cosmos. That was where the Blue Dream Dao Sovereign had gone. This cultivation star was bathed in blue light, both on its surface and deep within, as if submerged in an ocean of blue. In a blink, Wang Lin stepped into this azure star. No protective array barred him. Suspended mid-air above the star, he looked down upon a vast ocean below. The gentle sound of waves lapping against the shore echoed up to him. On the surface of the sea, several boats floated serenely. A faint melody drifted on the wind, reaching Wang Lin's ears, a tune full of joy, swirling endlessly through the air. After a long pause, Wang Lin took a step forward into the void. Tearing through the sky, he vanished, only to reappear at the base of a towering blue mountain. The surrounding landscape was filled with mountains and dense forests. Yet in front of this majestic peak, they all seemed small and insignificant. The mountain wasn't naturally blue. Rather, it radiated an endless azure light from within, making it appear to be a blue mountain. Wang Lin stared at the mountain, his eyes filled with conflicting emotions. After a long moment, he sighed softly. Then, his figure turned into a streak of rainbow light, soaring toward the blue mountain. But just as he approached, his expression shifted. He came to a sudden halt in midair, less than 1,000 feet from the mountain. The blue light emanating from the mountain surged into his body the moment he entered its range, transforming into an immense repulsive force that blocked any attempt to draw closer. What a powerful restriction array! Wang Lin narrowed his gaze at the blue mountain. With his mastery of restriction arts, he could tell at once. This wasn't something man-made. The source was the mountain's own radiant blue energy. After a long silence, Wang Lin's eyes gleamed. Primordial energy surged throughout his body, the ancient god power erupting from within. His figure shot forward like a meteor, charging into the blue light. As he pressed deeper, the resistance grew exponentially. By the end, it was like slamming into a wall of solid iron, thunderous booms echoing out as he neared. The instant his feet touched the base of the blue mountain, the overwhelming force pressed down from the heavens themselves, making his entire body throb with muffled explosions. Yet none of it could stop Wang Lin. He lifted his gaze to the mist-shrouded, azure-illuminated summit above. His eyes shone with determination as he stepped forward and began his climb. The blue mountain soared into the clouds, its peak lost from view. But a winding staircase stretched down from the summit, and Wang Lin began ascending, step by step. His speed was incredibly fast, without any hesitation. As he ascended the steps, his entire primordial energy surged rapidly, clashing against the resistance. The sounds of explosions echoed through his body, yet with his persistence, he managed to climb almost 30% of the stairs. At this moment, however, the resistance from the mountain peak was overwhelming, as though a cultivation star had descended, obstructing Wang Lin's progress. With every step he took, he was met with endless pressure and resistance. And what was even more terrifying was that the higher he climbed, the more the resistance multiplied. Time passed slowly. At the peak of Blue Mountain, inside an ordinary house, Li Qianmei sat cross-legged, her eyes tightly shut, her body shimmering with blue light. Her father, the Blue Dream Dao Sovereign, stood behind her, occasionally making gestures with his hands, pointing into the void. Each time his fingertip landed, Li Qianmei's body would tremble, and black gas would leak from her 7 orifices, disappearing into the house. Outside the house, the sound of a flute echoed through the air. The woman in pink sat on a blue stone, playing the flute gently. The melody carried a complex emotion, reverberating through the world, reaching the house, and even Wang Lin, who was still climbing the mountain. As the flute melody reached his ears, Wang Lin had already ascended nearly half of the stairs. His face showed exhaustion, his eyes bloodshot. The resistance from the mountain peak was now indescribable, like multiple cultivation stars descending at once, pressing down on Wang Lin, making every step a monumental struggle. The power of the ancient god within him operated in tandem with his primordial energy, unleashing bursts of strength that radiated from within, causing his eyes to glow with determination. He raised his foot again and continued to ascend the mountain. The sounds of explosions came from within his body, accompanied by a torrent of sweat, some even tinged with blood, as his blood circulated rapidly, bursting under the immense pressure. Gradually, his primordial energy was running at its limits. With each breath, vast amounts of heaven and earth energy surged into him, and as time passed, his ancient god power also reached its peak. The two forces supported him as he drew nearer to the peak of the mountain. After 3 days, Wang Lin had ascended almost 80% of the stairs. At this point, he could look up and see the top of the staircase. Yet, he was incredibly fatigued, his body like a drum, endless pressure enveloping him, and his body trembled uncontrollably. In his hazy state, it felt as if he had returned to his early days of cultivation at the Xun'er sect, enduring the entrance trials. The overwhelming resistance felt as if the entire world was pressing down, ready to crush him. What was even more terrifying was that as he ascended, not only did the resistance above him grow stronger, but there was also resistance beneath his feet, forcing him to use extra effort to maintain his footing. If he faltered for even a moment, he would be sent flying by the force from below. Under this double resistance, Wang Lin's face grew pale, his clothes drenched in sweat, but his expression remained resolute. He was determined to reach the peak and see if Li Qianmei had awakened. Once he had seen her, he would leave, but until then, no force in the world could stop his steps, even if the sky were to collapse and the earth to crack. I brought Li Qianmei here, and I must see it through to the end. Wang Lin gritted his teeth, blood tasting in his mouth, and with a determined step, he continued his ascent. The closer he got, the more unimaginable the pressure became. After coughing up several mouthfuls of blood, his blood vessels nearly bursting, Wang Lin had climbed 90% of the stairs. At the peak of the mountain, inside the house, Blue Dream Dao Sovereign opened his eyes. Before him, Li Qianmei's 7 orifices released the last trace of black gas, and her body, enveloped in blue light, began to recover rapidly. Her withered appearance was restored, and her eyelashes fluttered as she slowly opened her eyes. The door to the house opened, and the woman in pink walked in. Her gaze swept over Li Qianmei, and for a moment, she seemed lost in thought. After a long pause, she softly spoke. "He's almost here. Shadat, where you go? Tell him your name." Blue Dream Dao's sovereign lowered his head, gazing at the ancient zither beside him. He gently stroked its strings and whispered. Li Qianmei nodded, slowly rising to her feet, a trace of confusion in her eyes. She walked out of the house and immediately saw the first rays of sunlight in the distance, and her confusion deepened. Under the immense resistance, Wang Lin took the final step, reaching the summit of the mountain. He climbed the last step and stood at the peak. Here, the resistance suddenly intensified, roaring down in silence, crushing him with overwhelming force. Yet his body remained still. As he set foot on the peak, he saw Li Qianmei, the woman gazing at the distant sunrise. The mountain wind blew, causing her clothes to flutter as if she were a fairy. At that moment, the woman turned her head and looked at Wang Lin. Their gazes met in an instant. Wang Lin smiled, and Li Qianmei had awakened. "My father sent me to tell you my name. I am Lan Yu. Who are you?" Wang Lin paused for a moment, staring into Li Qianmei's eyes. After a long while, a bitter expression appeared on his face as he softly said, "My name is Wang Lin." As he spoke, he released the resistance coming from all directions. The instant he let go, the pressure from all sides surged down, sending his body flying away at an incredible speed toward the distance. The distance between him and the woman atop the mountain peak expanded endlessly in that moment. Even his gaze was gradually obstructed by the vastness of space, until he could no longer see clearly. To part ways and forget in the rivers and lakes. Perhaps it's for the best. Wang Lin's heart was tangled with complex emotions, unspoken and unclear. As he was thrown away, he turned and walked toward the distance. In Lan Yu's eyes, the confusion deepened. She vaguely felt a sharp pain in her heart, a suffocating sensation, and everything before her seemed to become like the surface of water. She stood beneath the surface, watching a bird in the sky, growing smaller and more distant. "Father, why does it feel so familiar when I see him? It feels like he has always been in my memory. So important, so important." Lan Yu did not turn around and spoke softly. "The greatest distance in this world is not between the ends of the earth, nor the separation of life and death. It is forgetting. An emotional bond that starts at the wrong time and in the wrong place is wrong from the very beginning. If, after forgetting, you two are able to start anew, I will never stand in your way. Even if he is chosen by the ancient immortal domain, I would dare to fight for you and the immortal domain." Blue Dream Dao's sovereign did not answer Li Qianmei's words, but instead closed his eyes and gently stroked the ancient zither. "The greatest distance is forgetting. Dreamer, when will you remember me?"